There are some truths about aging that nobody prepares you for. People warn you about the aching joints, the fading eyesight, the way your body betrays you bit by bit. But nobody tells you about the other kind of betrayal, the kind that comes from the person you spent decades nurturing, protecting, loving. The kind that makes you question whether love itself was just another foolish investment in a life full of them. Today, I want to share something that happened to me, something I'm still processing even now. It's about trust, about family, and about how sometimes the people we love most can hurt us in ways we never imagined possible. My name is Evelyn Roberts, and I'm 81 years old now, 82 actually, as of last month, though I didn't celebrate much this year. For 35 years, I stood in front of classrooms full of second graders, teaching them arithmetic and cursive writing, watching them sound out words letter by letter until suddenly, magically, they were reading. I loved those children. I loved seeing their faces light up when something clicked, when understanding dawned. I retired in 2010, thinking I'd done my part, thinking I'd built something meaningful with my life. I met my husband George in 1963 at a church social. He was tall and quiet, worked as an accountant, wore the same 3 suits in rotation his entire adult life. We weren't wealthy. Teachers and accountants never are, but we were comfortable. We saved carefully, lived modestly, and in 1975, we scraped together enough for a down payment on a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. We made our last mortgage payment in 2003, and I remember George opening a bottle of wine that night, something he rarely did. "Free and clear, Evie," he said, raising his glass. "All ours." He died 6 months later, heart attack while mowing the lawn. I found him face down in the grass, still gripping the mower handle. After George passed, that house became everything to me. Not just shelter, but proof that our life together had meant something, had produced something solid and real. Every room held memories. The kitchen where George would make his terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings. The bedroom where we'd painted the walls 3 different shades of yellow trying to get it just right. The backyard where our daughter Rebecca had her 7th birthday party, where I can still picture her gap-toothed smile as she blew out the candles. Rebecca, my only child, my beautiful, troubled daughter. She was born in 1971, a colicky baby who cried for hours, who never seemed quite satisfied no matter what I did. As she grew, that restlessness followed her. She was bright, sometimes brilliant, but she couldn't stick with anything. She dropped out of college after 1 semester. Her first marriage, at 23, lasted 2 years. Her second marriage, at 31, lasted 5. She bounced between jobs, receptionist, retail manager, real estate agent, never quite finding her footing. And she had 2 children of her own, wonderful kids, 14 and 16 now, who I adored. Over the years, I helped Rebecca as much as I could. $1,000 here for rent when she was between jobs, $2,000 there when her car broke down, $5,000 for a down payment on an apartment she lost 6 months later. George used to warn me, "Evie, you can't keep rescuing her," he'd say. "She needs to learn to stand on her own." But how do you not help your own child? How do you watch them struggle and just fold your arms and say no? She was my daughter. What else was I supposed to do? After George died, Rebecca and I went through a distant period. She'd call every few weeks, always rushed, always with the kids screaming in the background. Our conversations were brief, transactional. She was busy with her life, and I was trying to figure out mine without George. I understood. People get busy. Life happens. Then In early 2023, something changed. Rebecca started calling more frequently. She started visiting every week, sometimes twice a week, bringing the kids along. She'd arrive with groceries and cook dinner, proper meals with vegetables and everything, not just the frozen pizzas she used to serve. She'd sit with me for hours, asking about my health, my friends, my days. She even helped me clean out the garage, a task I'd been putting off for years because it was full of George's things I couldn't bear to sort through. I was so happy. My daughter was back. She'd matured, I thought. She'd finally realized that family mattered, that I wouldn't be around forever, that we should treasure the time we had left. I felt blessed. "Mom, you look tired," she said one afternoon in March, concern creasing her face. "Are you taking your medications properly? Do you need me to set up one of those pill organizers for you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart," I assured her. "I've been taking pills longer than you've been alive." She laughed, but there was worry in her eyes. I know. You're 81 now, Mom. I want to make sure you're taken care of." A week later, she brought up estate planning. We were sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd kissed her skinned knees and helped her with homework, drinking tea from the set George and I got as wedding presents back in 1964. "Mom, I was talking to a friend who's a lawyer," Rebecca said, stirring sugar into her cup. "She said that at your age, you really should have your estate planning in order, to avoid complications later." I felt a small chill. Talk of death always made me uncomfortable, even at my age. "I have a will," I said. "I made one after your father passed." "I know, but wills have to go through probate, which takes forever and costs a fortune." My friend said there are better ways to handle things, like trusts and other arrangements that would protect your assets and make everything easier for me and the kids when the time comes. When the time comes. Such a gentle way to talk about my death. I wouldn't even know where to start with something like that, I admitted. Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's what I'm here for, Mom. Let me help you. I found this estate planning specialist who's really good, very experienced. We could just go talk to him, see what he recommends. No obligation." It seemed reasonable. More than reasonable, it seemed responsible. Here was my daughter, stepping up, thinking ahead, trying to make sure everything would be handled properly. I was proud of her. "All right," I said. "If you think it's important?" She beamed at me. "I do, Mom. I really do. I'll set up an appointment for next week." The following Tuesday, Rebecca picked me up in her car, a newer model, which surprised me since she'd claimed to be broke just a few months earlier, but I didn't ask about it. We drove to an office building in a part of town I didn't know well. The office itself was on the second floor, down a long corridor that smelled like fresh paint. The door had a nameplate, Heritage Estate Planning Services. Inside, a man in an expensive-looking navy suit stood to greet us. He was in his 40s, with styled hair and very white teeth. "Mrs. Roberts," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "I'm David Marshall. Thank you for coming in today. Something about him made me uneasy, though I couldn't put my finger on what. Too smooth, maybe. Too many teeth in that smile." He ushered us into his office, a room with fake wood paneling and motivational posters about securing your legacy and protecting your loved ones. We sat in chairs across from his desk, which was covered with neat stacks of documents. For the next hour, David Marshall talked. He talked about estate taxes and probate courts and irrevocable trusts and stepped-up basis and generation-skipping transfers and Medicaid spend-down provisions. He used charts and graphs. He quoted statistics. He name-dropped cases and precedents and tax codes. I understood maybe one word in 10. My hearing aid was acting up that day. I could hear sound, but it was like trying to understand someone talking underwater. I kept nodding, pretending to follow, too embarrassed to admit I was lost. I'm a retired teacher, not a stupid woman, but I might as well have been listening to someone speak Mandarin. Rebecca sat beside me, nodding along confidently. "That makes sense," she'd say. Or, "Yes, exactly." She seemed to understand everything perfectly, which reassured me. Finally, David Marshall slid a stack of papers across his desk toward me. "Mrs. Roberts, based on what your daughter has told me about your situation, I've prepared a comprehensive estate plan that will protect your assets and ensure a smooth transition when the time comes. These documents establish a living trust that will hold your property and financial accounts. This way, everything transfers automatically to your designated beneficiary, in this case, Rebecca, without going through probate. You'll save thousands in legal fees and court costs." I looked at the papers. The text was tiny, dense paragraphs of legal jargon that might as well have been hieroglyphics. "I don't understand all this," I said, my voice small. "Of course not," David Marshall said, with that bright smile. "That's why people hire professionals like me. The important thing is that this protects you and protects your daughter and grandchildren. Think of it as insurance for your family's future." "But what exactly am I signing?" Rebecca shifted in her chair. "Mom, it's just standard paperwork." The lawyer explained it all. "It's a trust to protect your house and your savings so they don't get eaten up by taxes and fees later." "How much later?" I asked. An awkward silence. Rebecca laughed, but it sounded forced. "Mom, nobody's saying anything's going to happen soon. But you're 81. It's just being practical." David Marshall leaned forward, his expression serious and sincere. "Mrs. Roberts, I understand this feels overwhelming. Legal documents always do. But I assure you, everything here is completely standard. Thousands of families do this kind of planning every year. Your daughter is being very wise to encourage you to get this handled now, while you're still of sound mind and body. While I'm still of sound mind." The implication hung in the air. If I didn't do this now, I might lose the capacity to do it later. "I need time to read all this," I said, putting my hand on the stack of papers. Rebecca checked her watch. "Mom, we've been here over an hour already, and I need to pick up the kids from school soon. Mr. Marshall's time is valuable. We're lucky he could fit us in today." "Your daughter's right," David Marshall said. "My schedule is quite full. If we don't complete this today, it might be weeks before I have another opening." They were both looking at me expectantly. I felt pressure building in my chest, that familiar anxiety I got when I felt rushed or confused. There's so much here. "What is this one?" I pointed at a document labeled Transfer Deed. "That's the document that moves your property into the trust," David Marshall explained. "Standard procedure. The property technically becomes owned by the trust, which you control, and which designates Rebecca as the successor trustee and beneficiary." "So I still own my house?" "The trust owns it, but you control the trust, so effectively, yes." It sounded right, but also not quite right. I couldn't articulate what bothered me about it. Rebecca put her hand on my shoulder. "Mom, look at me. Do you trust me?" I looked into my daughter's eyes, the same eyes I'd gazed into when she was a newborn, when she was a toddler taking her first steps, when she was a teenager borrowing my car for the first time. "Of course I trust you." "Then trust me now." "This is the right thing to do. I've done the research. I've talked to people. This will protect you and protect us. But you need to sign today, or we'll lose this appointment and have to start all over. What choice did I have? She was my daughter. She wouldn't hurt me. She was trying to help. I picked up the pen David Marshall offered me. Over the next 20 minutes, I signed my name again and again and again. Every few pages, he'd turn the stack and point, "Here, Mrs. Roberts," and I'd sign. And here. I signed. Initial here. I initialed. And here on the last page. I signed. I counted later, from memory. I think I signed my name 6 or 7 times across different documents. But I couldn't tell you what any of them really said. The words swam on the page. My hand shook. My daughter smiled encouragingly. David Marshall kept saying, "Perfect, perfect," each time I signed. When it was done, he gathered up all the papers and slid them into a folder. "Congratulations, Mrs. Roberts. You've just taken an important step in securing your family's future." I felt numb, not relief, not satisfaction, just numb. In the car on the way home, Rebecca was cheerful. "See, Mom? That wasn't so bad, and now everything's taken care of. You don't have to worry about any of this anymore." "I still don't really understand what I signed," I admitted. She patted my knee. "You don't need to understand every legal detail. That's what lawyers are for. The important thing is it's done, and now you're protected. Protected." That was the word everyone kept using. But I didn't feel protected. I felt confused and tired, and like I'd just done something I didn't quite mean to do. The next few months passed quietly. Rebecca continued to visit regularly, continued to be attentive and helpful. Everything seemed normal. I tried not to think about that stack of papers I'd signed. Then, in August, I got a letter from my bank. It was regarding my house, the letter said. There had been a change in the property records. According to the county recorder's office, I was no longer listed as the owner of the property at my address. The property was now registered under RBT Living Trust. I read the letter 3 times, my hands shaking. RBT Living Trust. Rebecca's initials were RBT, Rebecca Brenda Thompson, her married name from her second marriage that she still used. I called Rebecca immediately. "Honey, I got this strange letter from the bank about the house." "Oh, that." Her voice was casual, unconcerned. "Yeah, that's from the trust we set up, remember? The house is in the trust now, like the lawyer explained. It's fine, Mom. Everything's fine. But it says I'm not the owner anymore. Well, technically the trust is the owner now, but you're the trustee, so it's the same thing. Don't worry about it." But I was worrying about it. Something felt wrong. I tried to remember what David Marshall had said about the trust, about ownership, but it was all a blur. I mentioned the letter to my friend Dorothy the next week at our weekly lunch. Dorothy and I had taught at the same school for 15 years. She was sharp as ever at 78, still volunteering at the library, still reading a book a week. "Evelyn, did you have your own lawyer look at those papers before you signed them?" she asked, setting down her soup spoon. "No, Rebecca found the estate planner. He seemed very professional." Dorothy's face creased with concern. "Oh, honey, you should never sign legal documents without having your own independent lawyer review them, especially not estate planning documents. Those can be tricky." But Rebecca said everything was standard. I'm sure she did. But Evelyn, no offense to Rebecca, but her track record with money and decisions hasn't been great, has it? Remember when she lost that apartment because she didn't read her lease properly? I did remember. and the time she'd bought a car without checking the interest rate and ended up paying twice what it was worth, and the time she'd invested in her boyfriend's business opportunity that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. "Maybe I should have someone look at the papers," I said slowly. "Maybe you should," Dorothy agreed, "but I didn't have copies of the papers. I'd signed them and David Marshall had kept them. I called Rebecca and asked if she could send me copies. "Why do you need copies?" she asked, and I heard an edge in her voice I hadn't heard in months. "I just want to have them for my records." "Mom, I have the copies. If you need to look at anything, I can show you, but there's no point in you having copies. You won't understand them anyway, and you might just confuse yourself or lose them." That stung. It was true that I didn't understand legal documents well, but being told I was too confused to even keep copies of papers I'd signed felt infantilizing. "Rebecca, I'd like copies, please." She sighed heavily. "Fine, I'll mail them to you. But I don't know why you're being so paranoid about this all of a sudden. Is Dorothy putting ideas in your head? Because she doesn't know anything about estate planning." She did mail them, eventually, 3 weeks later. When I opened the envelope, I tried to read through the documents, but it was hopeless. Page after page of whereas and heretofore and irrevocable and power of attorney and transfer of deed. I understood individual words, but the sentences made no sense to me. I needed help. I found a legal aid clinic through the senior center. It took 2 months to get an appointment. They were overwhelmed with cases. But finally, in November, I sat down with a young lawyer named Maria Chen. She was maybe 30, with kind eyes and a patient way of explaining things. I brought all the documents. She read through them slowly, occasionally making notes, her expression growing more and more serious. Finally, she looked up at me. "Mrs. Roberts, do you understand what you signed here? I thought I was setting up a trust to protect my house." Maria Chen took a breath. "These documents do create a trust, but not the kind you probably thought you were creating. Let me explain what you actually signed." Over the next hour, she walked me through it, piece by piece, translating the legal language into words I could understand. With each explanation, I felt like I was falling, like the floor was disappearing beneath me. The first document was an irrevocable transfer deed. I hadn't just put my house into a trust that I controlled. I had transferred complete ownership of my house to a trust that Rebecca controlled. The word irrevocable meant I couldn't undo it. My house, the house George and I had spent 28 years paying for, the house where I'd raised my daughter, the house that represented everything we'd built together, was now legally Rebecca's property. The second document was a durable financial power of attorney. I had given Rebecca complete control over all my bank accounts. She could withdraw money, close accounts, make investments, whatever she wanted, and it was durable, meaning it would remain in effect even if I became incapacitated. The third document was an advance healthcare directive naming Rebecca as my sole healthcare proxy. This one wasn't necessarily bad in itself. It's common to designate family members to make medical decisions if you can't. But combined with the others, it gave Rebecca total control over every aspect of my life. The fourth document was the most insidious. It was titled Waiver of Future Interest, and it was buried in the middle of the stack. In this document, I had waived any future claim to reside in the property. Essentially, I had given up my right to live in my own house. Rebecca, as the new owner through the trust, could legally evict me whenever she wanted. "But why would I sign that?" I whispered. "You probably didn't know you were signing it," Maria said gently. These things are often hidden in stacks of papers using complex language. People sign where they're told to sign, trusting that the lawyer has their best interests at heart. So it's not legitimate? I can challenge it? Maria's face was sympathetic but realistic. You can try. The problem is, you did sign all these documents. Your signature is on every page. To challenge them, we'd have to prove either that you weren't mentally competent when you signed. I was competent, I interrupted. I know. Or we'd have to prove fraud or undue influence, that your daughter manipulated or deceived you into signing documents you didn't understand. She did. I didn't know what I was signing. But proving that in court is very difficult, especially when the documents appear properly executed. Did this David Marshall person explain what you were signing? I tried to remember. He talked a lot, used a lot of terms I didn't understand. He said it was all standard, all normal. And your daughter was there encouraging you to sign? Yes. Maria nodded. That's undue influence, potentially. The problem is, it's your word against theirs, and they have signed documents as evidence. We can try to fight this, but I want to be honest with you. It's going to be difficult, expensive, and there's no guarantee we'll win. I felt like I was going to be sick. How could she do this to me? She's my daughter. Maria had probably seen this before. I could tell by the resignation in her eyes. Financial exploitation of the elderly is more common than people think, and sadly, it's usually family members who do it because they have access and trust. I sat there in that small legal aid office, surrounded by file folders and motivational posters about justice, and I felt my world crumbling. My daughter, the baby I'd rocked to sleep, the toddler whose hand I'd held crossing streets, the teenager I'd stayed up worrying about, the adult I'd bailed out again and again, had robbed me. Not with a gun or a mask, with smiles and "I love you, Mom," and manipulated trust. That evening I called Rebecca. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely dial. "Hi, Mom," she answered, sounding distracted. I could hear the TV in the background. "Rebecca, I need to talk to you about the papers I signed." Her tone changed immediately, became guarded. "What about them? I had a lawyer look at them, a real lawyer. Rebecca, you made me sign over my house to you. You took control of my bank accounts. You made you?" Her voice was sharp now. "I didn't make you do anything. You signed those papers voluntarily. I didn't know what I was signing. You rushed me. You told me it was just trust documents." "It is a trust. That's exactly what it is. But I'm not the one who controls it. You are. Rebecca, you own my house now." There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was cold, matter of fact. "Mom, you're 81 years old. Let's be realistic here. How much longer are you going to be around? 5 years? 10 if you're lucky? That house was always going to be mine eventually. I'm your only child. I'm your heir. All I did was arrange things so they'd transfer smoothly when the time comes, instead of getting stuck in probate for years. But it's not time yet. I'm still alive. This is still my house. Technically, it's not anymore. But you're still living there, aren't you? What's the difference? The difference is it's mine. George and I worked for decades to pay for it." Rebecca laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, so now it's about Dad. He's been dead for over 20 years, Mom. He doesn't care who owns the house." I was crying now, tears running down my face. "How can you be so cruel?" "I'm being practical. Look, you're still living in the house, you're fine. Nothing has actually changed for you. You're getting upset over paperwork. I want my house back. I want you to transfer it back to me." "I can't do that, Mom. It's an irrevocable trust, remember? That means it can't be undone. Even if I wanted to give it back to you, which I don't, since you're clearly not competent to manage your own affairs anymore, I legally can't. So I guess you're just going to have to accept it. I'll sue you. I'll take you to court." Her voice turned mocking. "With what money? Oh, wait, I control your bank accounts too. Good luck hiring a lawyer on your Social Security check." The cruelty in her voice was shocking. This wasn't my daughter. Or maybe it was, and I'd just never wanted to see it. "Rebecca, please. Why are you doing this?" "Because I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being broke while you sit on a house worth nearly $400,000. I have kids to raise, bills to pay. You've had your life. You had a husband, a career, a nice house. What do I have? 2 failed marriages, a shit job, an apartment I can barely afford. You could help me. You could have helped me years ago by giving me what's rightfully mine. But instead, you just gave me little handouts, 1,000 here, 2,000 there, like I was a charity case. Well, I'm taking what should have been mine all along. It's not yours until I die." "Yeah? Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you signed the papers." She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, listening to the dial tone, and I realized I didn't know my daughter at all. Or maybe I'd known, deep down, and had spent 52 years making excuses for her. The next morning, with Maria Chen's help, I filed a lawsuit against Rebecca, seeking to void the property transfer on grounds of fraud and undue influence. I also requested a temporary restraining order to prevent her from selling the house while the case was pending. Rebecca hired a lawyer, a real one this time, a sharp woman in a power suit who argued that I was mentally competent when I signed, that everything was explained to me, that my signatures were genuine and legally binding. We tried to subpoena David Marshall to testify, but he'd disappeared. His office was empty, the website for Heritage Estate Planning Services was gone, the phone number was disconnected. It was as if he'd never existed. Maria did some digging. David Marshall wasn't even his real name. He was actually David Kowalski, and he had a criminal record: fraud, forgery, identity theft. He'd served 4 years in prison and had been out for less than 2. And according to bank records Maria obtained through discovery, Rebecca had paid him $5,000 3 weeks before taking me to that office. It was all planned, all of it. The sudden attention, the regular visits, the concern about my health and my estate planning. It had all been a carefully orchestrated con, with my own daughter as the lead scammer. The court case dragged on for over a year. Depositions, motions, hearings. I had to testify about my mental state, my understanding of what I'd signed, my relationship with my daughter. Rebecca's lawyer tried to paint me as a confused old woman who'd forgotten what she'd agreed to, while also arguing I was competent enough that the documents should stand. The logical contradiction didn't seem to bother anyone. The worst part was seeing Rebecca in court. She'd sit at the defendant's table in conservative outfits, probably borrowed or bought specifically to look respectable, and she'd look at me with such cold contempt that I could barely stand it. During breaks, she'd walk right past me without acknowledgement, as if I were a stranger. The judge, a woman in her 60s who'd probably seen too many cases like this, finally ruled in my favor regarding the house. She found that there was sufficient evidence of fraud and undue influence, particularly given David Kowalski's involvement and Rebecca's payment to him. The property transfer was voided, and my house was returned to my name. But the financial power of attorney was more complicated. Rebecca had already used it to withdraw $63,000 from my bank accounts over the past year and a half. When questioned about it, she produced a detailed list of expenses. $800 a month for caregiving services she claimed to provide, $1,200 for home, maintenance, and repairs, $500 a month for medical expenses and prescriptions, $300 a month for grocery shopping and meal preparation. The list went on and on. Were these expenses legitimate? I couldn't prove they weren't. She did visit me. She did occasionally bring groceries. The house did need some repairs. She'd had a contractor come out to fix the roof, though I suspected she'd vastly overpaid and possibly split the difference with him. My lawyer argued that these expenses were excessive and that Rebecca had a conflict of interest, but without receipts or proof of fraud, it was hard to prove. In the end, the judge ordered Rebecca to return $30,000 of the withdrawn funds, finding that some of the claimed expenses were unreasonable or unsubstantiated, but the rest she was allowed to keep. Of my original $80,000 in savings, I got back about $50,000. The $30,000 from the court order plus the roughly $20,000 Rebecca hadn't yet withdrawn. But the lawyer fees ate up another $25,000. In the end, I was left with about $25,000 in savings, plus my Social Security and small pension. I'd won, technically. I had my house back, but I'd lost so much more. The last time I saw Rebecca was at the final court hearing. After the judge issued the ruling, Rebecca stood up, turned to me, and spoke loud enough for everyone in the courtroom to hear. "I hope you're happy, Mother. You've made it very clear that you don't trust me, that you value your precious house more than your own daughter. Fine, keep your house, die alone in it, because I'm done. You'll never see me or your grandchildren again. I hope it was worth it." She walked out. That was 18 months ago. I haven't heard from her since. My grandchildren, I miss them terribly. They're 16 and 18 now. I don't even know if they finished high school, if they're applying to colleges, if they have girlfriends or boyfriends. Rebecca won't take my calls. I sent birthday cards, but I don't know if they received them. I'm 82 now, and I live alone in this house that cost me my daughter. Some days I wonder if she was right, if I should have just let it go, if I should have accepted being robbed in exchange for keeping some semblance of a relationship with her and my grandchildren. But then I remember the coldness in her voice, the calculated nature of her betrayal, and I know that woman wasn't my daughter anymore. Maybe she never was. Maybe I'd been in love with an idea of who she could be, rather than who she actually was. I've joined a senior advocacy group now. We try to educate other elderly people about financial exploitation, about the warning signs, about protecting themselves. I share my story, though it embarrasses me to admit how easily I was fooled. Never sign anything you don't completely understand, I tell them. Never, ever. I don't care if it's your own child asking you to sign. I don't care if they get angry. I don't care if they say you're being paranoid or you don't trust them. If you don't understand it, don't sign it. But my son would never cheat me, they say. My daughter loves me. I thought that too, I tell them. I've redone my will. Everything goes to the education foundation that supports the school where I taught for 35 years. They'll use it for scholarships for kids who need help. Rebecca will get nothing. She's already taken what she's going to take from me. People ask me if I regret suing her, if I regret destroying our relationship over money and property, but that's not what happened. She destroyed our relationship when she decided to rob me. I just refused to pretend it was okay. The hardest part isn't the money I lost. Money is just money, and I have enough to get by. The hardest part is the revision of memory. Every moment I treasured with her is now suspect. When she was being attentive in those months before the signing, Was there ever a moment of genuine love? Or was it all calculation, all performance? When she said, "I love you, Mom," did she mean it? Or was she just softening me up for the con? I'll never know. And that uncertainty has poisoned everything that came before. Sometimes I dream that she comes back, that she knocks on my door with tears in her eyes and says she's sorry, that she was desperate and made terrible choices, but she wants to make amends. In these dreams, I forgive her. We cry together. She brings the grandchildren, and we're a family again. Then I wake up in my quiet house, alone, and I remember that the Rebecca in those dreams doesn't exist. Maybe she never did. The real Rebecca is out there somewhere, probably telling people that her ungrateful mother cut her off, that she was just trying to help with estate planning, and I repaid her kindness with a lawsuit. I'm sure she's made herself the victim in her version of events. That's what people like her do. I'm not sure what the lesson is here, except maybe this. Love doesn't protect you from betrayal. Sometimes love makes you more vulnerable to it, because you want so badly to believe the best about the people you love, that you ignore the warning signs screaming at you to be careful. Trust is a precious thing, and once it's broken, it can't be fully repaired. I know that now. I spent 52 years building trust with my daughter, and she destroyed it in one afternoon for a house and some money she would have inherited anyway if she'd just been patient. Was it worth it for her? I doubt it. The roughly $33,000 she got to keep from my savings, plus whatever she made from that fake roof repair and other padded expenses, probably totals around $40,000. She sold her mother, her children's grandmother, their relationship, any chance of reconciliation for $40,000. I sold my relationship with her and my grandchildren for a house and $25,000 in savings. Maybe we're both fools, but at least I can sleep at night knowing I didn't betray anyone. I can look at myself in the mirror. I spent my whole life trying to teach children the difference between right and wrong, trying to raise my own child to be honest and kind. I failed at the second part, but I won't fail at the first. I won't pretend that what she did was okay, just to keep the peace. Some prices are too high to pay, even for family. So I sit here in my house again, legally mine, surrounded by memories of a marriage that ended too soon and a daughter who I loved but never really knew. I'm old now, and I won't be here much longer. When I go, this house will go to help kids get an education, kids who will hopefully grow up to be better than my daughter became. That will have to be enough. If you're reading this, if you're elderly or have elderly parents, please learn from my mistake. Protect yourself. Get independent legal advice before signing anything. Don't let anyone rush you or make you feel stupid for asking questions. And if someone, even someone you love, gets angry at you for being cautious with your assets, that anger tells you everything you need to know. I learned this too late. I hope you won't.